Welcome to the Hair Loss Show. Dr. Russell Knudsen and Dr. Vikram Jayaprakash discuss issues relating to hair loss and the medical and surgical treatment of hair loss in both men and women.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Hair Loss Show, episode number 41. Today's episode, we're going to go back to some Q&A. We did a Q&A on finasteride, and that had a lot of great feedback and further questions, and we'll do another one on that soon. But this time what we thought we'd do is we'd do a Q&A on Minoxidil. So I've got a list of the sort of top questions that have been asked on the YouTube channel. Once again, thank you very much for watching. If you like the channel, please subscribe, like the channel as well, and leave a comment or any questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So the first question that we have on Minoxidil is, hi, how long can you leave them, or how long do you have to leave the Minoxidil on? So if you're using topical Minoxidil, effectively, it absorbs relatively quickly. Within 20 to 30 minutes, I generally say to people, look, if you can leave it on for 30 to 40 minutes, most of its absorption has been done. So at that point you can wash it off or go exercise and sweat it off or whatever. So, but generally speaking, most of the time I would tell people, look, if you're trying to build it into your routine, maybe use it at night before you go to bed. So if you pick an area, just apply. And remember, if you're using a topical Minoxidil, be it the foam or the liquid, you've got to apply it to the skin. If you apply it to the hair, it does nothing to stimulate hair growth, because this part of the hair is actually dead. The live portion is underneath the skin. So apply it before you go to bed. Go to sleep, wake up, you can wash it off. But generally speaking, 30 to 40 minutes is adequate for it to absorb through the skin. It probably absorbs faster, but I think as a general rule, 30 to 40 minutes and you are quite safe. All right, so I hope that answers that question. Second question, how often do we need to use Minoxidil? Well, we addressed this question when we did the original video on Minoxidil. And if you recall, Russell was part of the group of doctors that did the original studies on topical Minoxidil, and those studies were the protocol for the studies were to use Minoxidil twice a day. So if you look at 5% Minoxidil, Regain, Rogaine, on the bottle it will say to use twice a day. But we actually know from subsequent studies on the pharmacokinetics and dynamics of the medication that it actually it lasts longer than 18 hours. So it has a half-life of over 18 hours in the system. So probably twice a day dosing is probably a bit overkill. And so generally, both Russell and myself, we just recommend once a day is absolutely fine. And you're gonna get the same benefit. You're not gonna get extra benefit, a significant benefit from using it twice a day. So once a day is perfectly fine. You reduce the amount that you're going to use and the bottle will last longer. So hope that answers that question. Question number 3, where can you use Minoxidil? Pretty much anywhere that you want to stimulate hair growth. I wouldn't use it on the eyelash. I think using it too close to the eyes is probably going to cause irritation, especially the liquid. So I would avoid that absolutely. So don't try and apply it to the eye. The eyebrow, I think, is a very limited benefit. So anywhere really on the scalp will be fine. Again, you have to apply it to the skin, not to the hair. If you've got a significant amount of bald or a significant amount of thinning, then you're going to be limited into the benefit that you're going to get. So choose the area carefully, and what I mean by that is that, you know, look at the area and be assessed prior to that, and whoever's assessing you can probably give you good advice on where you're probably going to get the best benefit from using that Minoxidil. It can also be used on the face to good effect to try and stimulate beard hair as well. All right, so hope that answers that question. Question number 4. what happens if you stop minoxidil therapy? So as we've discussed previously, minoxidil acts as a stimulator. So it stimulates the hair through a number of different pathways. It increases the blood flow to the area, increases the growth cycle of that hair, of the hair in that area. So you can use minoxidil. You don't have to use it all the time. You can take breaks from it. But if you do, understand that that effect will slowly wean off. The cycle will shorten, and you'll probably get more shedding in that area. But then you can always restart at whatever point you wish. So you can start and stop as frequently as you wish. The only caveat that I would add to that is that if you are stopping and then restarting the minoxidil, what you're probably going to go through is that shedding phase soon after restarting the minoxidil, where you lose a lot of hair in that initial phase. And that's basically because it's stimulating the new growth of that new hair underneath, which is pushing that existing hair out. So you lose that hair, and then there's a dormant phase for about 3 months, and you're waiting for that new hair to pop through. So always, you know, when anyone uses minoxidil and they experience that, that's always very perturbing. But if you're going to stop and start, then you're going to spend a lot of time in that sort of shedding zone, so to speak. So I would, you know, it's not something I would advocate, but if you do stop and start, be wary of that. But look, if you miss it for, you know, 3 or 4 days, even if you miss it for up to a week, you're not going to go through that. That doesn't matter. You know, occasionally missing a dose like that is not going to make too much of a difference. You just get back onto things and start the process again. All right. Question number 5, which is better, the oral version or the topical version? So a few episodes before, we've gone and talked about oral minoxidil and the pros and cons of oral versus topical. In essence, there's no difference. It's the exact same active ingredient. The benefit of the oral version is that you're probably going to get higher levels systemically. So you're going to probably get a better outcome, more stimulation. The downside is that it can have effect on the blood pressure, so you've got to be careful. But also it will stimulate hair growth everywhere, so body hair everywhere. So be mindful of that. The benefit of the topical version, be it liquid, be it foam, is that you can localize the effect to where you want it to work. So if you're not keen on stimulating hair growth everywhere, and you're just worried about a particular area at the front or in the crown, and you just want to concentrate the effect of the therapy in that area, the topical version gives you better control of that. As I've mentioned before, the topical version comes as a liquid or the foam. I generally personally recommend the foam more than I do the liquid, only because the liquid, the active ingredient is something called propylene glycol, and it causes more scalp irritation more frequently than say the foam version. So I think the foam is better tolerated from that perspective. Also with the foam, it's a bit more malleable, and therefore you can actually control where you apply it a lot more easily. So hope that answers that question. And the last question, which kind of relates to a question that we had before, can it be used to stimulate beard growth? Yes. All right, so you can apply a topical minoxidil to the beard to stimulate beard growth. You can take the oral tablet as well, and again that will result in stimulation of the beard. Just be mindful and remember that if you are someone that doesn't have a lot of beard hair, if you don't have hair in the first place, taking minoxidil or applying minoxidil is not going to make you grow new hair. You have to have a hair follicle, a hair graft there in the first place to be able to stimulate. So just temper your expectations, I guess, is where I'm going with that. But it can stimulate that particularly facial hair to grow very well. All right, so and that's pretty much it for today's Q&A. Hope that answers those questions. I've gone through them quite quickly. Feel free to watch the video again, but hopefully that's basically some of the questions, most frequently asked questions that we've had from the Minoxidil episode. So hopefully that answers those, and then we'll see you again on the next episode. Thanks very much. Bye.